We are pleased to be joined by Steve Lane this morning. Well, we won't tell them, but that was definitely a funny one. He is seeking the office of U.S. Congress, the 4th District. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
They would never believe in a million years what we were just talking about. Never. Never. Oh, it is good to have you with us.
Well, thank you.
And I would love to ask you a few questions that would allow the viewers and voters to better know you as a candidate and be better informed voters.
That's what I'm here for. Glad to do it.
Shall we?
Yes.
All right. First, let's start with if you would tell us about yourself, where you're from, where you live, where you're from originally, and where you live now, and tell us, please, about your family and what is your current occupation.
Sure. Of course, my name's Steve Lane. I'm a husband, father, teacher. I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. Came here by way of Texas. I lived in Texas 10 years, but I've lived in Tennessee a little over a decade now, about 15 years. I currently live in Murfreesboro, in Rutherford County, of course. I have 6 kids, 4, it's a blended family, so I have 4 stepchildren, and then have my youngest daughter who turns 17 next month, my oldest daughter who's 21 that I adopted, and she recently gave birth to a new baby, so I'm a grandfather, believe it or not, at age 43, which is thrilling. I always talk about that I'm still 17 up here, so I can't quite get my head wrapped around the
Aren't we
idea that
all?
I'm a
Yes.
grandchild now. So,
And what do you do now?
I teach building construction for the Tennessee College of Applied Technology. I've spent really all my adult life in the construction industry, and when 2008 hit, we had the housing collapse. I was rightfully weeded out of the market. I'm an excellent home builder. I was not a very disciplined businessman. So I had to go look for a real job, I guess you might say, and ended up teaching, and I've spent the past 6 years teaching, and I really love it.
Okay. If you would tell us about your education and previous work experience, where you went to school and what jobs you held up to the current position that you hold.
Well, I have spent really almost all of my life working. I got my first job in 4th grade. I wanted a job in 3rd grade. I wanted a paper route. My mom and dad thought I was a little bit too young, but fortunately another paper route came available the following year in 4th grade, and I've literally held a job ever since. And I know what it's like to earn a living, with your hands, with your sweat, with your back, and that's what I've been accustomed to. So I was in the Air Force. I'm the only veteran in this race. I like to joke for the veterans that are out there. I wasn't in the military, but at least I was in the Air Force. So I spent 1 term in the Air Force, and then after that, I worked in the private sector refueling airplanes for a short time, and then but then essentially all my adult life it's been in construction in one form or another, starting off from a laborer and working my way up to being a licensed general contractor.
Okay. Have you ever worked on a political campaign before or run for office, held an elected or appointed office before, or worked for an elected official?
No, and this is one of the things I'm most proud of, and one of the key points that we're running on. You could almost say I'm the anti-candidate in the race. I'm a working man. I'm the only person in this race right now that works for a living. The other 2 are career politicians. They're full-time professional politicians. I'm the only one that works for a living. Now, I have taken leave to campaign full-time. I had a lot of sick leave saved up, a lot of regular leave saved up, and so since early July, I've been campaigning full-time. But, in spite of that, I've been endorsed by the Republican Liberty Caucus. It's a national organization that's endorsed people such as Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, some people like that. And there's an interest in having a return to the citizen candidate, somebody that works for a living, that goes and serves and for a few years and comes back home. I've been asked a couple of times now to go give speeches in Washington, D.C., so we were seeing a trend within political circles to move back to that, and I'm the only person in the race that you get with that.
So what made you decide to run for this office?
Debt. It's represented by this red penny lapel pin. We put red pennies on everything we do. It represents the concept of not one more red cent in debt. Our young people are under attack. Democrats like to talk about the war on women, The simple fact is we're all waging war on our young people with our debt. We're $17 trillion in debt. We're adding $1 trillion to that every year. If we don't start making hard choices right now, our young people aren't going to have any choices by the time they inherit this mess. And that's what motivated me to do it. It's that grandbaby.
All right. Tell us what qualifies you to hold the office of U.S. Representative.
Again, I like to point to the fact that I work for a living. I think that's the best qualification a man can have or a woman can have to serve right now, because the folks that are in office right now, they don't serve. They serve their own careers because they've made this a profession for themselves. But I'm a person that understands what it's like to work for a living, to be behind on bills, to struggle to make ends meet, to come home tired because your back's sore. My other two opponents can't say that. They don't know what that's like. They do this for a living. And, you know, it's interesting, over half of all the people in Congress are millionaires now. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a millionaire. I think we all would like to be a millionaire one day. But we've got to give these folks some competition. And I think, again, having competition from somebody that actually works for a living, that understands what that's like, I think I think that's important that we move back to that. That's the way it used to be.
All right. How can we better prepare students of public schools to enter into universities and or the workforce?
What we need to do to improve education is twofold. Number one, we need to get the federal government out of education entirely. The Federal Department of Education wasn't even started until 1979. I started school, first grade, in 1976. You could make the case that all the great American accomplishments occurred prior to the Federal Department of Education. The more money we've spent at the federal level, the lower test scores have gotten. It's a diverging graph. So I've proposed that we phase out the Federal Department of Education in a 3 to 5 year period. And the best way to improve education is to put control of education spending in the hands of the people that know the names of our children. And that is principals, that's teachers, and of course parents. If we put them in control of spending, we'll spend far less on our education system, and our children will be far better prepared for the workforce and college if they choose to go that route.
Okay. Do you believe the current tax structure is fair to individual taxpayers and corporations, or would you propose changes to the manner in which individuals and corporations are taxed?
I believe we should scrap entirely our current tax code. What we have now, it's over 80,000 pages, if you can imagine that. In the next 4 years, it's expected to increase to over 120,000 pages. Our current tax system is set up, it's perfect for lobbyists. That's the only person it's fair to, is lobbyists and big government. We need to scrap it entirely. Although I'm personally a bigger fan of what's known as the fair tax, I believe what has the better chance of passing in terms of alternative tax systems is the flat tax. But I have my own concerns about it. Right now we have a 100-year version of the flat tax. That's how it started in 1913. And this is what happens when you get lobbyists involved with a flat tax. I think what's more likely to happen, though, is that you're going to see Democrats and Republicans come together and try to broaden the tax base but lower the rates, so that we have more people paying taxes, but all those people will pay less. I think that's probably the most likely scenario, but we need to scrap the tax system and start with a blank sheet of paper.
Okay. Do you believe that it is possible to maintain a balanced budget with the social programs such as welfare and Social Security without tax increases by making cuts to the budget? If so, what budget cuts would you propose to allow these programs to continue without increasing taxes?
You know, cutting is actually so easy for an average person like you or I. It's extremely difficult for politicians. I'm a proponent of something called the penny plan, ironically, which basically you would, in year one of the budget, you would freeze spending. Years 2 through 5, you cut 1 penny of every dollar out of the budget. That's it, 1 penny of every dollar. And by year 5, you have a balanced budget. And that's with no other structural changes. That's just one plan. Politicians don't cut. What they do is they do something called baseline budgeting, where every year you start with the previous year's budget, you add about 6% to that. And that's called baseline budgeting. It's built-in growth. When you see this, wailing and gnashing of teeth about cuts, they're not cutting anything. They're reducing that rate of growth from, say, 6% to 4%. But it's still 4% growth. Only in Washington, D.C. can you grow a budget and call it a cut. But normal folks like myself, we see it for what it is. We see it as a fraud. We understand if you just do 1 penny of every dollar, that's it. 5 years, you have a balanced budget.
Do you believe the Affordable Health Care Act is a viable health care plan, and why or why not?
Well, look, I'm a veteran, and to anyone that has seen what's gone on with the VA healthcare system, this is where everybody's headed in terms of nationalized healthcare, when government runs healthcare. The VA system is horribly broken. There aren't enough doctors and nurses to serve the number of patients that are there. That's where Obamacare is taking us. With regards to the VA system, I, for one, would like to see us give veterans vouchers. Why can't a veteran use a voucher to go to a hospital or a doctor of their choice? I think they've earned that in their sacrifice. My dad lives in Scottsville, Kentucky. Many times he has to visit a VA hospital in Nashville or even in Murfreesboro. My uncle lives in Crossville, Tennessee. He has to travel all the way to Murfreesboro to get VA care. That's not right. These guys have made sacrifices enough. They shouldn't have to make more sacrifices just to receive the health care that's owed to them. So let's give those guys vouchers and let them go to hospitals in their towns. Let's let them go to their own doctors in their own towns.
How do you propose to deal with illegal immigrants that currently reside in the U.S.?
Well, we need to do a number of things. Number one, we need to secure the border. We don't need to secure the border solely for the purpose of immigration. We need to secure the border because it's in the Constitution to do so. It's a national security issue. We have troops patrolling the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We don't want to have any troops patrolling our borders here. I've proposed that governors should be not only allowed, but they should be using their own state's National Guards, for border states, to defend their borders. And that way we have Texans guarding Texas borders. We have Arizonans guarding Arizona's border, and they would be under the command of each state's governor. That's the number one thing. Secure the border because it's a national security issue. Number two, phase out the welfare state. If we demagnetize the United States, stop having all the free goodies, then there would be no reason for illegal immigrants to make these treacherous crossings. There'd be no free goodies there at the end. And when we eliminate the welfare state, we eliminate the freeloaders here in America too. I think there's been a lot of focus on illegal immigrant freeloading, but there's far more American freeloaders here, and that's why I think it's important that we eliminate the welfare state.
Okay, finally, why should you be elected to serve as a U.S. representative in the 4th District?
Well, I'm going back to what I mentioned earlier. I'm a citizen candidate. I bring just regular common sense thinking to Washington, a place that's surely absent of it. I'm the only person in this race that has served in the military. I'm the only person in this race that actually has a real job. The other two are career politicians. I'm the only person in this race that hasn't sold out to lobbyists at the State House in exchange for my vote for Common Core. I'm the only person in this race that hasn't taken money from Speaker of the House John Boehner, as our sitting congressman has. So I just would ask that people take a look at our website, stevelaneforcongress.com. Look for us on Facebook. Look for us on Twitter @LaneForTN. Follow along with what we're doing. Look at our list of appearances. Communicate with me through Facebook and Twitter and our website. I speak to people one-on-one on Twitter and Facebook all the time. It's a great way to communicate. And I'm very accessible in that regard. So I encourage them to look at those, check us out, and if they see something they like, then vote for us. Early voting starts for this Friday, and it continues on. And then, of course, we have Election Day on August 7th. So I'd ask that people vote for me.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. Do you have an event or appearance that you'd like to
Oh,
let
I am
viewers
so
know about?
glad you asked. I almost forgot. That's great. Actually, tomorrow night, Thursday night, we are having something called Liberty Karaoke at Mayday Brewery in Murfreesboro. It starts at 7 o'clock. They can find out about it on our Facebook page. There's an event there. Check us out on the website to link us over to that if they can't remember that. Again, it's stevelaneforcongress.com. It's $25 to get in. It is a fundraiser. As part of that $25, you get 2 beers from Mayday Brewery that normally are $5 each. Those are pints, by the way, so you get 2 pints of beer for that. And we're going to have a great time. This has been something that's been done in Washington, D.C. It's got a lot of national publicity on shows like Glenn Beck's talked about it. It's been mentioned on The Blaze, ABC News. So it's just a great way for folks to come and get to meet me and get to know me better and chip in for the campaign a little bit. You know, campaigns don't run on rainbows and dreams. Ours has been running on duct tape and baling wire, but it takes a little bit of money too. So it's a good chance for folks to help out the campaign as well.
Okay. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.